Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to SWD Bespoke's webinar on the safety and significance of fire doors. I'm Olivia, part of the SWD team, and I'll be your host for the next hour as we navigate this important topic. We have a fantastic panel of experts joining us today, and each bringing a wealth of knowledge and experience in the industry. Unfortunately, Elliot Brown from the Fire Door Inspectors has been unable to attend today due to his flight being delayed, but we're in good hands with 𝗏𝗏𝗂𝗏𝗂𝗏, the founder of SWD. He has extensive expertise in combining aesthetic elegance with top-tier safety and functionality. We also have Charlie Purdom here, a fire-rated door systems expert from Selo, specializing in pocket door solutions and fire door testing. I just want to say a special shout out to the marketing team for organising this webinar on my birthday, but I have been promised that I have a nice cake waiting for me after. So before we dive in, I have a few housekeeping notes. This webinar is being recorded and will be shared later today. So if you can't stay for the full session, don't worry, you'll be able to catch up. That said, if you can stay, we'd love you to join us for a Q&A at the end where our panel will address your questions. So feel free to drop them in the chat box at any time during the session. So now let me introduce SWD Bespoke. Our company was founded 18 years ago by my father, 𝗏𝗏𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏, who is with us on the panel. SWD is recognized as a leader in bespoke luxury doors with a particular focus on safety and design. In fact, around 80% of the doors we produce are fire-rated, as the high-end homes we work on are often require these advanced safety features. So today's discussion is centered on an incredibly crucial topic, fire doors. Fire doors are a vital part of ensuring safety in any building, helping to contain fire and smoke, protect property, and more importantly, save lives. As the importance of fire safety regulations continue to grow, particularly in residential buildings, it's essential to understand the role fire doors play in meeting these standards. During this webinar, we'll be exploring several key topics with a particular focus on both single-dwelling and multi-story residential buildings, including regulations and compliance, testing and certification, installation best practices, manufacturing standards, and of course, aesthetics and how to balance safety with luxury design. Just another reminder, throughout the webinar, we encourage you to engage with us and ask any questions, which we will aim to answer at the end. So without further ado, let's get started. There's been a lot of talk recently about Grenfell in the media, so I'd like to begin by inviting Charlie to share with us what has changed recently in your particular industry regarding regulations in relation to residential properties.
Thanks, Olivia. Following Grenfell, there's been a massive amount of change on regulation side of things, but if we're talking solely about fire rating, the actual fire testing protocol is still largely the same. There's certain things that are being added to it and revised, but there's two key things to look for when you're looking at fire rating, and that is what standard it's tested to. So there's two key standards. One is BS 476, which is the old British standard, which was written in the 1980s, and then BS EN 1634, which is what everything's been tested to now, is lots more strenuous test, and that is what the gold standard of fire testing is. Mm-hmm. So just some basics on the differences between the two. So 476 was based on sort of opinion-based, so you've got a bunch of experts were put together a standard of what a fire door should achieve, but 1634 is all evidence-based, so everything is done from physical fire testing evidence. So things that are used in residential buildings are all actually physically tested as items. One thing that's been really stressed since and been put in place in a more stringent manner since Grenfell is the fact that doors have to be tested from both directions. They have to be the positive pressure, which is basically the pressure on the fire door, is much harder, so the furnace increases in temperature lots faster. Things like hardware has to be tested as part of the door set, especially recessed stuff, like locks and concealed closers, concealed hinges. And then you've got the differences between timber doors with timber frames and timber doors with metal frames. Different ironmongery for each. It has to be evidence-based. Those are the basics. There's a lot of information there, but hopefully that.
In a nutshell.
Simplistically, the sort of European test, the main difference between that and the UK version is the testing oven gets hotter a lot quicker and creates a lot more pressure, which is, maybe more likely what would happen in an actual fire.
Yeah, and that's the importance of testing it both directions as well. Is you can previously it was like the BS476, you tested it from one side only, and it was the more stringent side, but actually fire doors work very differently from both sides, so they need to be tested both ways, and because of that pressure, anomalies can be brought up, and that's the importance of testing.
Okay, thank you. So with the testing 1634, when did that come into play?
I don't know when it originally came into play, but it's where everything is going. So 476 is being faded out by the end of the decade.
Okay.
I can't remember the exact date, but 1634 is where everything's going. It's much better testing. It's safer, and it's more stringent and better for life safety.
I mean, our doors and door sets are manufactured, in our factory in Europe, and they've always used the EN testing anyway.
Everything we test is to the EN as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So when people are looking for suppliers, they need to be looking to see if they're using the 1634 test.
Yes.
Certainly going forwards.
Going forward. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. And Charlie, can you tell us what has changed within the installation and inspection point of view? And should door installers have qualifications to fit fire doors now?
Yeah, excellent question. So since October last year, since October last year, if you're installing fire doors, you have to have fire door installation qualification.
Okay.
If you don't, it then has to be signed off by a specific fire door inspector, who is then is the competent person to sign off the door. It might seem a bit arduous, but at the end of the day, you're dealing with life safety, so that's the key thing. And from an inspection point of view, the door gaps and things.
Well, yeah, I mean, they would certainly look at the door gaps. We've had recent inquiries of people living in apartments where the gap above their door's been 5 mil and they've been asked to replace it. Intumescent obviously plays a big part in any fire test as well. Also, certainly with the apartment buildings, they now have to be checked, all the entrance doors, once a year, with all the communal doors getting checked maybe 4 times a year now.
Right, okay. You've come across quite a lot of issues with compliance in the past, things you've heard from sort of other projects. Can you share some examples of these common mistakes?
I won't mention any places or companies that I've seen, but typically things that definitely aren't right are doors are hung in frames with no intermittent. I mean, it's the intermittent really that no door would really pass any fire test without intermittent.
What if the door had the intermittent in and was fit into a frame without?
Providing the intermittent's present, it can either be in the door or in the frame, but not generally both.
It has to be something that's tested together, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It can't be cobbled together.
I mean, obviously, if you get door sets, all the intermittent material is in.
Yep.
So it can't be left out.
Well, that brings me on to my next question. So what parts of a door need to be tested to be certified?
Well, the door, the frame, all the ironmongery. Architrave is not usually used in a fire test, so the architrave is not really relevant. And the intermittent and overhead door closers if they're required.
Okay.
There's also the point of recessed ironmongery.
Yes.
So things like flush pulls.
Yeah.
If you're wanting to use flush pulls in your doors, that you have to the flush pull either has to have come with test evidence, or you have to have tested it as part of your door system. So with our sliding pocket door system we do, Enigma we've specifically tested flush pulls with bathroom locks, that sort of thing. So we've got that evidence that if someone wants to use their own one, it has to comply with that. You've got similar with your doors, haven't you? With the hinge doors.
The factory use different blanks to use. They use their own one, and we had a big project where we had a lot of your sliding doors, and it coincided with the tests we were doing, and we did put the flush pulls in both sides on the test, and it passed. So we have that one.
And just going back to our question about the qualified installers, we've had a question come in. Is BS 1634 known as, what is known as primary test evidence, and what is the formal certification for a qualified installer? Are you guys able to answer that?
So the formal qualification, I'm not able to answer that. I'd have to find out from someone, but you may know, Tony.
Well, I mean, primary test evidence is, when the factories, they do their own test. There's a lot of people make fire doors who don't test. They just, go by maybe global assessment information. Also, you do need, if you do go by that, you need to be audited, and be a registered manufacturer who's authorised to do that.
And it comes back to that opinion based as well from 476. 476 was not primary test evidence based, but 1634 is. So it is basically, you've got a door, you made a door, put it into a furnace and burnt it. That's basically it.
Yeah. I mean, most of the door sets we supply, it's all based on primary test evidence done by the factory.
Okay, so when people are ordering fire doors, they should be asking their supplier for this information up front?
Yep.
Or if they have it at the very least, if they're not able to supply it before the order's gone through.
Yeah, we generally do, all the production drawings, and we do put the information about the door blank we're using and all the ironmongery. So there's a full description and drawings, the cross sections. Yeah,
I guess it's just good for people to ask those questions before they place the order, so they don't get stuck down the line. When it comes to testing, what is the difference between testing a full door set with the ironmongery compared with someone who might use a fire rated door leaf and sort of ironmongery and frames from different suppliers?
Well, if you sort of hang a door on site into a frame, it's probably quite high risk now, because there's, people may not know where the frames came from. If you get a pre-machined door set, frames everything together, the whole thing can be certified. I mean, we can't really give certification on a door leaf if we supply those, because we don't really know what's going to happen with it.
There's also the third-party schemes like Certifier and other things like that. Not to particularly advertise Certifier, there's others out there. But those third-party schemes are all based on 476, so they will actually all be faded out and new ones brought in. I was having a conversation with the technical director yesterday, actually. Shout out to Jeff Jones. I can't remember exactly what the new classification is going to come in, but that will mean that everything going forward will have to be tested as a door set and supplied as a door set to be fire rated. And it's best practice, because then you absolutely know that it's fire rated. It's got the evidence needed.
Perfect, thank you. Can you explain what doors in a residential home need to be fire rated and which ones should have a self-closer fitted?
Well, most of the projects we do are generally the sort of larger houses that do need a lot of fire doors. It generally applies to houses, over 2 floors. So if they've got a ground floor or, a basement or a second floor, they generally need fire doors. Location-wise, it's generally protecting the exit, which is the staircase. So everything around the hallway, generally that you can see, will be fire rated. Going upstairs, off the hallways, is mainly the bedrooms. Things like ensuite bathrooms don't need to be. It's mainly all habitable rooms. Okay,
and if they are only on 2 stories, do they need any fire doors?
It generally would be the garage door if the garage is actually attached to the house and that will also need a self-closer.
And out of all the fire doors in a larger property, when there's more than 2 floors, what ones need a self-closer?
Probably only the garage, mainly.
And is that the same in Ireland and Scotland, or just England?
Well, we do get quite a lot of, I mean, before 2007, all fire doors need to be self-closing, but they sort of got away with that regulation. The orders we get from Ireland and Scotland, they do still require door closers. It hasn't really changed so much up there.
And in apartments, what about the front door?
Oh yeah, all apartment doors need self-closers on them. We generally try to use concealed ones, and with a lot of test evidence the factory have done, and we've designed, you know, what the door is, we generally test with a self-closer already in it. They're very, very difficult to machine that type of thing on site.
Essentially, with an internal door, so past your entrance door, an internal door, if it's a fire door, is down to the resident to close, because it's there, essentially their property. It's where it's protecting the public space on an apartment building, which is, so you've got all communal doors, all communal fire doors and entrance doors.
Okay. And we briefly touched on this earlier, Charlie, but if you could expand, when a fire inspector is looking and checking fire doors, what is it that they're looking for?
Yeah, so Elliot, it'd be great if he was here because he's the specialist on this. But the key thing is door gaps. So in each door manufacturers, whether it's ourselves or you or any others, would be they would have within their test evidence, they would have what the gaps can be, maximum and minimum. So that's a thing that the inspector will look for. Whether the intermittent seals are in place, and for communal doors and entrance doors, whether the closers are actually functioning, whether they're doing their job. That's the basics of it, but that's about as far as my knowledge goes. I'm not
yeah,
qualified.
And also, you know, smoke seals.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, it's a good point.
They can be part of the intermittent, or they can be sort of completely separate. Like this is a intermittent there, and the smoke seal here on this
Frame system.
This frame section.
Charlie, at Selo, you do a lot of service doors and riser doors and things like that. We've had a question come in. Do you need FD30 doors to boiler or service cupboards to be a protected corridor?
Yes. So, well, anything that's got an item that could combust or is electricals, that sort of services in it, it needs to be fire rated. Anything, all of this would be done in the initial fire report and the fire strategy done by the fire consultant. So, and that, especially in high-rise apartments or commercial, we do a lot in both. You've got it's where you've got the fire compartmentation lines, and that can vary from project to project. So there's no rule of thumb, but typically, yeah, in a service cupboard, it's always fire rated. Okay,
and another question that's come in: how do you create sustainability within the materials used for fire retardant? Can either of you answer that? Or do we need Elliot?
I don't quite know how to particularly answer that question, but from a sustainability point of view, everything. Are they talking about? The question is whether they're talking about replacing doors, or if they're talking about refurbing current doors to be more sustainable. It's the question of sustainable and life safety. If the door can be repaired, which if there's significant damage, it can't be and still be fire rated, it needs to be replaced for fire safety. Yeah. When we had a call with Elliot a couple of weeks back, he was saying that wherever possible, they will recommend refurb or adjusting on in place rather than replacement for that very reason.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah. So sliding pocket doors are becoming more and more popular. You know, our clients are asking for them a lot. Charlie, that's your bread and butter. So can these types of doors be fire rated, and what is the process of installing them?
So short answer is yes, they can be fire rated up to 30 minutes. Our system can be smoke rated and acoustic rated now. From an installation point of view, very simply, the system comes as a case of components, and they're installed as per the installation instructions. But the key thing is the timber trims that the fire seals come in, the intermittent seals come in, they have to be in place, and then the pocket is clad with fire-rated plasterboard. That's the very basics of it. Obviously, the wall construction around has to be the same fire rating, or a lot of fire rating, the actual walls are double the door. Don't ask me why that's the case, but that's the way it works. But yeah, that's the basics of it.
Also, on your fire-rated sliding doors, obviously the thickness of the door can't really exceed 44mm, can it?
Yes, so that's the standard system. We now
you have one that's wider.
Yeah, we now have a system that can go up to 54mm to still be fire rated, but the standard system off the shelf is 44mm.
I mean, we make a lot of doors for you, and basically with the panel doors, we generally make them with recessed beading so it doesn't stick out.
Yes, good point. Yeah.
Also, with your fire doors, when the door's shut, there's about 45mm left in the pocket.
Yep.
So basically, if the door's got stiles on it, we would extend the stile by 45mm. So when it's shut, it looks like all the other doors.
When you're talking about style, we're talking about the beading on the door, the visible,
the side
panel
style.
sections. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the timber around the edge of the
Yeah.
door. That can often be overlooked when we're receiving drawings and designs. You know, people
we generally point that out.
Yeah. So let's talk about glazed fire doors and their limitations. We often receive designs, as I just said, with very thin timber stiles, or doesn't have extended stiles on the pocket doors. However, having very thin stiles around a fire door with glass in it doesn't comply with fire regulations. So we often have to alter the design. Yeah. Tony, can you expand on that?
Basically, if it's a fully glazed fire door, the side stiles and the top rail have to be 150mm. The bottom can be 180. We can get the stiles thinner than that, actually. If anybody can see the doors behind you, we can bring the stiles down to 100, providing we've got an 80mm piece going across.
Yeah.
So, but as I say, you obviously need to know the regulations and what you can and can't do.
It's also about the size of glass as well within the door.
Yeah, I mean, we can use up to 1.75 square meters, which is actually quite a big piece of glass.
Yeah.
So you can get a big door with a lot of glass in it.
Yeah, our sliding doors are slightly less than that, but yeah,
it's whatever you.
It's whatever's tested, and it's every door. If it's a fire-rated door, needs to be looked at in detail, make sure it complies with what you just put. Yeah.
Yeah, we often have to modify the designs that come in to make sure it's compliant.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's one of those things that anyone that's out there that's watching, if we ever turn you down on a fire-rated door, it's the reason is we regulations and test evidence rather than we want to annoy you. Our preference is to do. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We had a question come in about the limitations for glazing on fire doors. For instance, if clients have special requirements like fluted glass, opaque glass, or intricate beading, can this be achieved in fire doors?
It can. I'd say we've got fluted glass on there. That's fire rated. One glass that we never said we can do is sort of fire-rated beveled glass. Nobody seems to have any certification for that, so that's one thing we'd probably avoid.
It's about, again, it comes down to primary evidence of that glass. Different vision panels are tested in units, aren't they? So it's making sure that if you're wanting a specific beading or a specific glass, it needs to either be project-specific tested or have test evidence in the past.
Mm-hmm. And one of the viewers has asked, do materials/finishes matter when designing fire doors? Is there any certain ones that you cannot have?
You're talking about finishes?
Well, stains.
Materials/finishes.
Yeah. So you'd know more on the sort of bespoke timber route, but with what you test, you get a certain amount of things you can change. So things like veneers, as long as it's a solid wood veneer, you can use that. You can use laminates. It's where the veneers become thick and they become really textured where you've got a thick bit of timber essentially on the face of the door is where there's more stringent uses on that, because being a thicker build-up, it's more natural wood essentially, and that's more inconsistent.
Yeah, I mean, we had a spate of a lot of people wanting leather on doors, so we actually introduced into on 2 tests actually, leather in the door. One was a strip, one was a panel.
Yeah, okay.
So who'd ever think we needed to test with leather? But
yeah,
if you keep reading the manuals, they just didn't mention it.
Yeah, don't know, when you did that test, did it? Do you find it actually in the test it actually just falls off? Because we've tested certain riser doors where we have tiles on them.
I think it stayed there and just went black.
Oh, okay.
Basically, it's wrapped around a 3mm panel of MDF.
Yeah, okay, and set into the door.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
And just with regards to materials, obviously you can't make a fire door out of solid wood, but we do tend to use solid wood beading and lippings, and that's fine.
We do. We use solid wood lippings, that are quite thick. We use solid wood beading. You generally wouldn't. No, I'm not sure many people have tested a door made of solid wood in a fire test, because obviously under heat, solid wood is going to, probably distort quite badly. It's the distortion of the door blank really where the test will fail. Generally, I'd say we use these door blanks. The reason being they're extremely stable, and they're not prone to sort of warping or twisting.
Yeah.
That much, even in a fire.
Yeah, with fire-rated door blanks that you can buy off the shelf, but you can't, as in the likes of Houseband, Flame Break, Morale, they're all either particle board or block board, or they're not solid pieces of oak, because a natural wood can move a lot. It's inconsistent. But when you've got a particle board, which is Houseband, and a Houseband do others, but it's just millions and millions of tiny little bits of wood glued together, so it's more consistent, and it's a guaranteed consistency of fire rating.
Okay, thank you. And touching on ironmongery, we haven't really addressed that too much yet, but we have a question. In high-end residential, it's quite common to have bespoke ironmongery fitted to a tested door/frame combination. Will this meet BSEN 1634, or will additional accreditation from an inspector be required in this instance?
So, as touched on with flush pools, that is where most of the evidence would be required. So if they want to use a bespoke flush pool, it would have to comply, the basics of it would have to comply with what's tested already. So if you've got a if you've got a flush pool that's slightly different shape or slightly different look, but as long as the material is the same and it fits within what's been tested, the size and the depth, that would be fire rated. Where you've got surface mounted ironmongery, within fire testing and standard evidence, you have an ability to change out the surface mounted ironmongery as long as you're not removing material from the door.
Yeah, I mean, if you test, for example, you put it in a certain size lock in a test, they generally use a fairly large lock. You can always go smaller than that.
Yeah.
A lot of people are sort of saying that all hinges need intermittent pads behind them. I mean, the testing we've done, we actually haven't used them, and
that comes to primary test evidence as long as you've got it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think if we're given some of these sort of solid brass hinges, then they would probably need to come with the intermittent pads. They generally send them in with the pads on the hinge.
Yeah, a lot of fire tested ironmongery is stainless steel and plated, so it looks the same as like a solid brass or whatever.
Yeah.
Because stainless steel is a higher melting point, so it's got a greater fire rating. I know from our point of view, in our sliding doors, the flush pool has to be stainless steel, but then you can plate it to make it look the same. You can't use a brass flush pool in there because it's got a lower melting point. It might be alright, but we just haven't tested it. So,
most jobs we do is, they're all sorts of finishes. 10 different finishes. I mean, the finishing on stainless steel products now is getting so good.
Yeah,
you can barely tell the difference between sort of satin brass on steel, or whether it's literally satin brass.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah.
And I know we touched on the glass sizing, but could you both explain from a hinge door and a pocket door perspective what the maximum fire rated door sizes you can do?
44 mil with the FD30 with the factory blank we use, we can go up to 2.6 by...
I think it's 2.7.
No.
No?
I know. 2.6 by just 1.2.
Okay.
But the overall surface area has got to be within 2.87 square metres. We've got a 54 mil test where we can go up to nearly 2.9 by 1.1 metres. That area,
That's
I think...
per door leaf?
Per door leaf.
Yeah.
Which is about 2.7. If we have to go bigger than that, we sometimes have to go to the house span.
Yeah, standard evidence.
Standard test evidence.
And how big can that go?
3 metres.
And width?
3 metres.
Do you know the width?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Pulled me out there. Quite wide.
Have a look on Houseplan's website.
Yeah.
From a sliding door point of view, so there's two sizes on a single. So if you want as tall as we can go, so 2.850, we can go up to 1.1 wide. But if you come down to about 2.6, well, I think it's 2.5, you can go up to 1575 door width. But if you go up within that same evidence, you can go up to 2.6 and get about 1400 or something.
Pretty big.
Yeah, pretty big.
Yes.
Sorry, there's a lot of somethings going on too. But then for double doors, you can go up to 2.8 by 1.1 each again. So, yeah, sizable door sizes.
Okay, I'm going to just ask a few more of the questions coming in. It's widely believed that refurbishing fire doors is actually more of a compliance minefield than fitting. How do we explain this to clients without telling them, thinking we are trying to create additional work?
I don't know, really. I suppose it comes down to how a door's been tested. If you're altering a door so much that you're moving it away, or a door's been damaged so much, or over time it's become non-compliant from its original tested state, and you can't get it back to that without having to do vast changes to it, it has to be changed because of the compliance. Mm-hmm. It's literally a life safety thing.
Yeah.
If it's non-compliant to what it's been tested, primary test evidence again, it would need to be changed. If a client was desperate to keep it and didn't want to pay it, they would have to get it signed off by a fire consultant or a fire door inspector. But if the fire door inspector is changing it, that's the answer they need. But that's not, yeah. Mm-hmm. Hopefully that's clear.
Yeah. Do your glazing bars need to be stick-on only if you are making up multi-plane FD30 doors, or can you use timber glazing partition beads?
So like the one behind you?
Yeah. So most fire doors that look like, say they were separated into 8 panes, it'll be one piece of glass with the beads sort of bonded over the top. Mm-hmm. Whereas a non-fire door, you could split that down into 8 separate pieces of glass, and if you wanted to, use bevel glass. Mm-hmm. But fire doors, generally it's
if you split it up, you have to have 80mm stiles everywhere. So to get more of a multi-panel, the best way to do it is stick the beading on the face of the glass.
Okay, thank you. Is a fire-rated door made from a different material to a non-fire-rated door?
So it depends. From your point of view, you're saying...
Well, our ones aren't actually. We make our our non-fire doors, the same as the fire doors. Generally, because most of the doors we do are door sets, we'll make everything 44 mil.
Yeah.
I mean, non-fire doors, you can go out and buy sort of hollow cardboard ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's difference. It depends on what market you're dealing with, what the budget constraints are. So for your clients, the quality needs to be higher. So you use fire doors. A majority of what we would do with our concealed frame doors will be fire doors, but whether they're non-fire rated or not. But with our timbered all set system for these lower end sort of high-rise apartments, mid-end range, you can have, as you say, hollow core. You can have like a tubular core, which is still a solid core, but with tubes taken out of it, which would be non-fire rated.
Yeah.
So yes and no, basically.
I mean, I suppose the only difference with door sets we put either fire or non-fire is the fire ones we put the intermittent strips in the frame.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, in my experience,
because it's the intermittent strip that will,
save lives.
Give the fire rating.
Well, yeah, it's essential.
Yeah, in my experience, I see a lot of clients, coming in, probably more homeowners who aren't as, in the know, but they want all their doors fire doors just to ensure that the quality and the weight are the same throughout. But, we quickly explain that there's not going to be any difference really in terms of that.
You always often saw plans where they specified fire doors and they didn't need them. We couldn't quite work out why, but maybe the architect thought buying a fire door was the only way to get a heavy door.
Yeah,
was probably the answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have a question about aesthetics. So we often get clients who prefer using pull handles on their fire-rated double doors because of the striking visual impact. However, we frequently run into challenges that fire doors require a latch and a flush bolt for compliance. However, pull handles don't operate a latch. So, Tony, would you recommend? What would you recommend for achieving this setup?
A double fire door has to have a flush bolt on the slave door, and it has to latch into that, which is a latch that needs to be operated with a lever handle. If you want pull handles on, you would need self-closers. If you go to most sort of England hotels where they,
the corridor doors,
push plates and pull handles.
Yeah.
So that's really what you'd have to do.
And you can get obviously concealed self-closers, so it's not going to be some big ugly thing on your lovely feature doors.
Yeah.
Thing also with double doors is roller catches. So roller catches, because it is just a ball on a spring essentially, is classed as unlatched. So that is not a latch that you can use. So if you've got a roller catch, you still need a closer on it.
Basically, with the pressure in the furnace, it would just blow it open.
Yeah, it would just
So that's really why, isn't it?
Yeah. We had a question come in. This one will be for you, Charlie. Does a riser cupboard have to have a door closer on it to be certified?
No, because a riser door cupboard has to be locked to be certified, so it doesn't. Because
it's locked with a key, aren't
it's locked with a T-bar key and secured with a Eurocylinder. But because it's locked, it doesn't need the closer.
Okay. Another question from the viewers: If I'm designing a completely bespoke glazed door and screen set that's never been done before in this exact combination, but each element is fire rated, will that conform, or does it need its own individual certificate?
This is one for you, Tony.
So what, like double doors and side screens?
A completely bespoke glazed door and screen set. So yeah, double door screens.
Well, that system behind you is fire rated. The double doors have to be within its own frame, and even though the doors on the sides, could be sort of duplicate doors, they sort of need to be in a frame as well.
But the question is whether it's the completely different scenario that's never been tested before. If there's no evidence that can be used and can be pulled together by a fire, like for instance, like IFC, they would be able to look at it and say, these elements have been tested before. If that can't be done, it has to be tested. There's numerous projects where we've done, not on this scenario, but other systems that are different to what's been tested, and we have to do a project-specific test. It's an expensive way of doing it. But
well, we did one with you for a project in Knightsbridge, right?
Yeah, we did. Yeah. So
it can be done, but not cheap. But again, worth speaking to the manufacturer and finding out whether it can be done or not. Let's see. I've got a question. What is the risk of getting an individual joiner to make door sets without them having any proper test evidence and not being an accredited company that does not have annual audits?
Well, they won't be able to provide any test evidence, and
It's compliance, basically.
Yeah.
If they're not, if they might be able to make a door, but if they're not audited, they don't have that compliant certification. It's also, the door might have some fire rating elements to it, but as a system it hasn't, and as a manufacturer they haven't been audited or done any testing, so the door is technically non-fire rated, even though it might have an intermittent seal in it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, our factory, they obviously have their own primary test evidence, and when they use house ban, they're certified, to be able to manufacture to their global assessment, and they get audited, and they have to get their certificate, renewed every couple of years.
And we haven't actually touched on how fire doors are made. Tony, can you explain their construction and what items are included?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the flush door is fairly basic. A lot of people try and make a panel door by using a flush door and planting on, surface beading, which looks like surface beading. But when we make panel doors, we recess the panels out by 12 mil, and then we put back 3 mil of MDF as a panel, which could be a raised and fielded panel. So, we can get an authentic looking panel door where the panels are recessed. And we can use, we test with recessed beading as well.
So, and also what we explained earlier about the different cores and the beading on the lippings on the edge, the solid wood lippings, and then you've got the frames, you've got the frame there, how that's made up with the intermittent seal. Do you want to explain about just the basics of an intermittent seal that anyone doesn't know?
Almost by default, unless we're told otherwise, we always use a rebated frame.
Yep.
I mean, Europe's been using these for years. We sort of, the UK, I suppose, standard way for years has been, door linings with a plant-on door stock.
Can you turn the frame round? The
camera's over there. So you can see here that the intermittent seal is recessed into the frame. So you either have it in the frame or in the door, not both, because they work against each other if you get it in both. That material will expand and fill the gaps essentially. So that is what provides you the fire rating. For a steel door, it works slightly differently. So for our riser door system that we use, that we manufacture, so we should say, is because a steel expands in a fire, there's no intermittent seal actually needed within the door. But for a timber door, timber will shrink because it gets burnt. So the intermittent seal fills up the gaps and gives the fire rating. Yeah,
and also the intermittent in the fire test, this gets activated, I think, between 180 and 200 degrees. The temperature of fire test will get up to is probably nearly 1,000 degrees. And
quickly as well, so it ramps up very quickly. So these are activated pretty much straight away.
So if this doesn't kick off, you can be in trouble on the test.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Another question from a viewer: what is a realistic turnaround time for a bespoke high-end fire-rated door from design to install? I suppose it depends on the manufacturer, but in our
12 weeks.
Yeah. From design though as well. So we do production drawings.
Who designs it.
Yeah. We do production drawings, so that can take some time if there's changes and things like that.
It's usually 10 to 12 weeks from sign off. I mean,
from sign off of the drawings.
So the design process. So the design process before that is just however long it takes to come to a design that's agreed.
Yeah.
So things like after you've got your primary test evidence on your doors, if you've got like a metal, like a flush bit of brass beading they want to put around the door, if that hasn't gotten test evidence, I don't know whether you do or not.
Actually, I'm glad you mentioned that. With the testing we do, we have an aluminium T-section profile.
Okay. Yeah.
Which can be anodized in loads of different colours. And we stick that in the test.
Yes, okay.
So we're covered for that. If they wanted us to use maybe a solid bar of brass, then potentially that may be complicated.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're on situations that we would come across where primary test evidence isn't there, but it's very similar, the likes of 𝗙𝗲𝗄𝗃 or Warrington Fire or another fire assessor might be able to look at it and do a project-specific assessment on that particular project, and that could take, how long's a piece of string, to be honest? It can take anything between 2 months to 6 months. But if you actually then have to burn it, then you've got probably 4 months until that door's done, door's tested, best case scenario, and then you've got to wait for the test report and then the assessment after that. The paperwork is a painful experience. So from a speed point of view on a project, it's best to stick to the tested details, otherwise who knows how long it can take.
Yeah. Okay, and another question from the audience. What do you see as the biggest challenge the fire door industry will face in the next few years?
The implementation of all the regulations coming out of Grenfell. So BS 476 being discontinued by the end of the decade is going to be huge, because not only doors, a lot of fire-rated elements and items that go into buildings are tested to 476. So you think of like insulation, bits of facade, the sort of finishes you put on paneling, all those things are going to have to be retested into 1634. So that is the biggest challenge, because there's going to be a lot of things that need to be retested. So that's the reason why for years we've been doing the EN 1634 testing for as long as I can remember, because of that change. We could see it coming, and it's a better option anyway. I don't know whether you've got any other things that you can think of.
I mean, are we covering insulation?
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you install a fire door, you know, keeping it simple and basic, you need obviously screws going through the frame, you know, into the opening. They need to be probably, I think, on the size every 500 mil, and with gaps, they always need to be, you know, sealed up with the right type of fire foam. Okay. So, in a nutshell, that's simplistically how you do it.
Yeah, from a regulation point of view as well, this could all change. There's so much change happening at the moment. Things being pushed back and not being implemented as quick as they wanted to is a constant fluctuating thing. So, to be honest with you, apart from what I've said just then about the 476, I don't really know what the difference will be, because it could be things are delayed or moved quicker, that sort of thing. So hopefully that helps.
Okay, well, I'm at the end of my questions, and I think the audience have asked a majority of what they want. If you have anything else, please get them in quickly. Is there anything else you guys want to cover? Just to give people time if they do have any more questions.
I was just going to say,
anything we haven't covered?
I was just going to say, should we sing Happy Birthday? Or
God, no.
I had a nightmare about it. I'm going to sing after this for some reason.
No, that's all good.
Please
Hopefully it's been some use. Obviously, if we've said anything wrong, we'll be very, very happy to be corrected if need be, but this is to the best of our knowledge.
And if anyone has any questions, feel free to contact either Selo or SWD. We're always happy to help. But yeah, thank you guys so much for joining.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
On your birthday.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it's been really good. I hope everyone's found it really informative. And stay tuned, as I'm sure we'll do another one of these soon if people have found it useful. So thank you very much for joining. And the recording will be uploaded later today. So yeah, if you want to watch this back, if you missed anything, then you should have access to that later today. Okay, well, thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.